Welcome to Yep, Yeah, Yes with Marissa and Tamieka. Today we are going to be discussing Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We have a special guest, my mom, Debra. Can I say your last name?
Sure.
Wideman. She is a member of the Pearls for Creative Healing. She worked at A Call to Men, Beauty for Ashes Ministry, City and County Board of Domestic Violence Advocacy for Charlotte, North Carolina. So she basically knows what she's talking about. I'm glad to have her on the show. But first, Marissa, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How's your cough?
It's still there, but it's part of my life. It is who I am. It is who I be. I cough and that's who I am.
That's who you are.
It is what it is.
Morning dew. How you do?
I be fine.
She loves calling you morning dew. Come closer.
It's so amazing. I love it.
It's nice to have a guest, right? The last guest we had was probably BJ.
Yeah.
Before that was Isabel. So Yolanda crashed one episode.
Oh, yeah, by accident.
Yeah, she didn't want to be on it, but then she started giggling.
By accident on purpose.
Right. But today, we probably have some laughs because that's how we are. But it is definitely a serious topic. As I mentioned, we're going to be discussing Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which is the month of October. I know a lot of people, it's kind of gotten drowned out by breast cancer awareness, which is definitely a major cause for us to appreciate and to give some dedication to. But I feel like, especially in today's climate with the Me Too movement and, a lot of things that are going on politically and in the entertainment world, Bill Cosby and stuff like that, that it's important to remember that there are women out there and men who are suffering from domestic violence. And sometimes it's important for us to take a moment to appreciate their struggle and maybe have a little bit of sympathy. With that being said, Debra, or Mom, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine, doing well.
Good.
She's doing well.
So we want to have you on the show so you can give a little bit of insight on your past. Maybe let's start with, before we get into some of the organizations that you've worked with, let's start with, go ahead, Marissa.
I was just about to ask, I would just want to know, can you just quickly just go over, before we talk about your story, I want to know the types of abuse.
Okay. So,
because I just want a definition, because I know some people only think abuse is when somebody hits you.
Right. So we'll have my mom discuss that because she knows a little bit about that kind of things. What would you say are some of the types of abuse?
Well, there's several types of abuse, but what most people look at is physical.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more than physical. There's the control side of it, the sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and intimidation, isolating the person from family and friends. There's the verbal abuse, which is coercion, threats, and blame. Economic abuse is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
And then just male privilege from a female point of view. So when we talk about...
What do you mean by that?
Male privilege is the fact that men are...
Some men, I guess.
Yes, that men have that privilege more so over women because they basically are the breadwinners. It's a male-dominated society as far as with laws and regulations and the brotherhood,
mm-hmm.
per se. But, when we say domestic violence, people automatically think that it's physical,
mm-hmm.
and that's just not so.
Right.
You can kind of recover from physical sometimes.
Right.
But the mental, to me, is more severe because you're dealing with the mind and the psyche.
Right. So what about, we'll delve in a little bit before you get into, some of the things that you did on a lot of these organizations and boards. You are a survivor. Is that what you like to call yourself? Is that?
Well, I started out saying I'm a survivor, but I think I'm a thriver.
Okay. Nice.
And because
She's
a survivor
a
means that you're still living in that moment.
Right.
But thriver means that you move past it.
Okay.
And I've moved past it.
Tell us a little bit about like how you got like obviously you can't tell your whole life story in a matter of minutes, but give us a brief overview of the stages where you experienced domestic violence from beginning to ultimately where you made the decision to leave the situation?
Well, I think, first of all, part of the reason that I allowed this to happen, and I say allowed because it takes two for something to happen, is because I so desperately wanted to be loved that I negated everything else, what true love was, because I didn't know what love was. So when I was in the relationship, it started out because I was given all this attention. And I never had that before. I've dated before, but not everyone I dated. It wasn't a long-term affair or courtship. But the person that I married, it ended up being a marriage because it just seemed that he did everything right in my psyche. And part of it is, like I was saying to myself and to others when I speak, that it's almost like from the scripture, John 10:10, where it says the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And then there's a song called The Sly, the Slick, and the Wicked. And that's what these perpetuators are a lot of times. They are so subtle that you're in it before you know it. And, during this time, it was the 70s, and everything in the 70s was open and free and love and young. And
prior to this relationship, had there ever been a situation where there was a domestic violence in any other relationship?
No.
So this was your first encounter, so you were looking to be loved, right? Like you
Yes.
said, I'm okay to say that?
Yes.
You were ultimately married someone because they did everything right, and or did everything that you thought was right.
At the time. What happened was that I settled.
Oh yeah. By the time you married, like, because I want listeners to kind of get an idea, because based on what you're saying, it sounds like it may not have come until after you married. But it's important to them realize that in spite of the abuse, you married.
Exactly. And I was going to get to that because I just wanted you to understand how important it was for me to have somebody look at me and say they wanted me. And I just looked at one part of it instead of the complete package.
Right.
So what happened was, what solidified that was that I was living in New York at the time, and my job transferred me to Maryland. And when I transferred to Maryland, he came too. Prior to that, there was no abuse while I was in New York. What happened, the abuse started when I was in Maryland. And that's the isolation part, where I'm away from family and friends, didn't know anybody.
Do you, at that point, your job transferred you. You were working at
Citibank.
A bank.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that he felt emasculated because you had a better job than he did?
Looking back, I believe that was part of it. I can't say what was wrong with him because there was so many different things wrong. But I wasn't married to this man at the time.
Right.
In my mind, it was like, oh, we'll get married. But once he was there and had me
you were
there
isolated
in Maryland with nobody, no family, no friends, I did go to church. He joined the church. I was like, he would do little things every time where it looked like I was going to leave. He would do things that would say, well, maybe there's hope. He joined the church. The first time he hit me was, and I don't believe Tamieka was there. This is not Tamieka's father. I want to make that clear. That this I met this gentleman. I can't even say gentleman. I met this person when Tamieka was 2 years old.
Okay.
So the thing is that we were in this nice apartment, and he was drinking, and he was doing, I thought, marijuana. Found out later it was harder stuff, but he proceeded to urinate in the dining room.
Ew.
And I said, you're in the wrong place. You got to go in the bathroom. And that's when he smacked me across the room. And at the time, I had this beautiful medallion. Back then, you could wear a medallion, and he kind of like ripped it off my neck. And I just never experienced anything like that.
And you had never seen, prior to this, you had never seen
saw any
anything.
of this.
This was not...
Nothing. And his sister was stationed in Virginia in the military. And I don't even know if you were there or not, because
I came later.
As a survivor, thriver, there's certain parts of my memory that just blocked it out, because that's what our mind does as a way of coping with things. But I do know that I went there, and his sister and her boyfriend at the time came back with me to the apartment, and he was in the military, and spoke to him. When we got back, the apartment was turned upside down.
He did this by himself.
Yes, I assume. And they talked to him and calmed him down, and he said he wasn't going to do it anymore.
Right.
Then it was like there's a cycle. It's called the honeymoon cycle, because after they do something that bad, then they start to wine and dine you.
Right.
With gifts and sweet talk, and so here
apologize
I am.
And that kind of thing.
I'm agreeing and believing, and to be honest, after that there was probably numerous times, but that first time was one time that I realized. Another time that I realized when it was really bad is when we were living in a townhouse, and I remember we had a big fight and everything. I can't remember details, but I know that there were several times where he would hit me, but he would threaten me and say, if you don't do this and if you don't act right, I'm going to get your daughter. I'm going to do this to your mother. I'm going to do all these horrible things. And I believed him. And so I said, well, let me just take the brunt of everything so he leaves my family alone. That's how I was thinking in my mind.
Was there verbiage from his family or from his family, his support system, that knew his behavior?
I believe they did, but they didn't want any part of it. It's more like, better you deal with it than me, because his mother was living then. And I used to talk to her, and she was like, sugarcoating everything.
I see. Did he come from a family? Was that an example that he had growing up?
I have no clue, because his mother was a single parent. There was 6 of them. I know that the grandmother raised them all until he was like 12 or 13, and then she passed, and then the mother that brought them to New York.
So there was something going on, but we don't know exactly.
Right.
It's fuzzy.
Right.
But the reason I ask is because, so oftentimes we say, well, what do you expect? Their father or mother, that's what they know. It's okay. That's just what they do. That's just how that person communicates. No matter what, that's not okay.
Well, see, and that's where I don't agree. When they say that, you can break the cycles.
Yeah.
You don't have to be. There's so many people that break those cycles. And then I don't have anything to look at to say that my family was receptive to that type of behavior.
Okay, so now continue with your story. Sorry.
Well, it goes on to being, I moved to Maryland in 1986. It got to the point where my daughter was coping with her way of coping, and I felt that it was secure by her being a prisoner in our own home, by locking herself in the room whenever I wasn't around, or even when we would go to bed at night, lock your door. There was a time when in the apartment, I remember taking a bath, and he dragged me out of the tub by my hair and started beating on me. And I said, let me just see about my daughter. And that's when I told her to just run across the street, because across the street was like a community. In the town that we lived, there was like little villages, and each village had a little community. So she was able to run to the restaurant there. And while he was doing whatever, I don't even remember, I slipped on like a house coat and ran across the street barefoot. And they locked us in the restaurant. He started pounding on the restaurant door to get in. Wow. Tamieka and I actually lived in a shelter for a couple of months. I wasn't proud of that because I was an executive at Citibank. And so I was putting on this pretense that everything was okay with church. I say, hi, praise the Lord. At work, I was okay. But it got to the point where he became more comfortable in doing things more out in
the open.
And
I
kept going back.
Physical or verbal out in the open?
It was both. Physical. One time he took, back then they had distributor caps for your car. He took that out of the car so I couldn't start the car and go to work. He would take my car sometimes, and then I'd wake up and it wouldn't be there, but he'd be home and I'm like, where's my car? He had to get a ride home because he doesn't remember where the car was.
Was that his what he, because what I'm trying to have people when they're hearing to understand, it wasn't just one form of abuse. This was verbal,
No.
This was physical, this was in somewhat financial.
It was financial because he was a drug addict.
Right, yeah.
And he used every penny I had because what I was doing was trying to maintain a household for 3 people.
Right.
And then I was like, when I look at it, I said, oh my goodness. I said, I really was not the person I knew myself to be.
Right.
I was being suckered into using money to bail him out of jail, to give him money when he said he just needed a few dollars for something. I was supporting. I was his what do you call it? Codependent. Enabler. Yes, I was his enabler. And what happened is that all this was going on back and forth, back and forth. Fast forward, my daughter graduates from high school, and I'm so proud of her and happy that she could get out of the house.
Because she was now going off to college,
yes.
dorming at college.
I was sad, but I was happy.
Right. Bittersweet.
And I had moved before then because it was another incident. I just kept going back to him. And typically they say that a person will leave 5 to 7 times.
So that's typical. It is typical to keep going back.
Yes.
Now, what do you attribute to this behavior?
The insecurity that is being broken down.
Mm-hmm. So
because that's part of the verbal
abuse.
And mental.
Right.
Because you're not worth it. Nobody's going to want you. You can't
right.
do without me. You can't. Meanwhile, I am really doing without you.
Beyond. You'd be
but
a whole
you
lot better.
isolated me so much that I can't even think because I'm just trying to survive every minute of the day.
Right.
And so Tamieka goes off to college. And I had moved. And I don't even know if Tamieka knows this or not, but my mother knew the new address. And she sent it
to
the old address. And I was getting up to go to church, and he's outside my new place, banging on the door, and chased me. We're going like 90 miles down the road. He's chasing me, and he cornered me and busted my windshield with his bare fist. And I was scared. I didn't know what to do. What happened is I moved back in with him because I didn't know what else to do. I don't even know. Listening to it,
you were terrified.
I'm like, but listening to myself say this, I'm like, what was I thinking? But again, I was embarrassed. So all these different things that I mentioned before,
right.
they all are hitting at once. It's not like this is one phase, this is the next. This is all happening. And so I went, and he made us go get a marriage certificate, license. And I kept putting it off, thinking that it's going to expire. And he, even though he's dumb, he was smart, knowing that it was going to expire. And he said, come on, I'm taking you to work. And he drove to the courthouse and said, we're getting married. And I was like, what the hell?
I gotta tell you, like that, yes. When she told me, it was probably like he sexually abused me, and none of that compared to the hurt I felt when she told me that she married him, because I knew what he did to her and I knew what he did to me, and now I'm thinking to myself, like, in my mind, marriage is forever. I didn't know anybody that was divorced.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? You just stay.
Yeah.
You make it work. And when she told me that, I was just like, I felt guilt because I'm like, I should have never went to college. And then I'm like, she don't love me. I told her what he did to me. Like, I don't, like, some of the stuff I'm hearing for the first time, because we talked, but it's like, it's hard to have a conversation.
I think what people don't realize, this is domestic violence and a predator, and this is two people talking about the same situation. These are not conversations that usually happen.
The thing too I want people to realize is that the key word is domestic violence. Domestic is in the home.
In the home.
And it's not necessarily spouses. It can be a brother against his sister. It can.
Yeah.
But in this situation, he was violent towards my mother and sexually abused me.
Right.
And so when she told me that they were married, we were on our way back from going back like for Thanksgiving or something like that. We were driving back, and she told me, and I just.
He abused another institution that you held.
I'm like
the one safety net you had was that they weren't married, but now
Yeah.
here he abused another institution that you had in your mind. That's hard. But
Yeah.
then you look at it from two perspectives. You know, as an
I couldn't
outsider.
even see her side.
No,
All
no,
I thought about was me. It was my selfishness or I don't want to say selfishness,
It's not,
but
it's not
like
selfish.
you're just thinking
but
about
that's
yourself.
But that's your life. You're both surviving something. So on one end, I either say I do or I effing die.
Right.
And on the other side, it's he just crumbled another institution that I held dear. Your home is your sanctuary. This is where you go to feel safe. He violated that. You go to sleep at night comfortable in your bed. He violated that. The relationship between mother and daughter. I'm not gonna say he didn't do anything to that, but the relationship.
He did.
In terms,
He did. It took us a while to get to where we are now.
Where you are now, yeah. But at one point, he did disrupt a harmony that you two have. So he just kept punching holes in institutions and safety that you both have. And having this conversation is extremely hard.
It is hard because.
But it's necessary, I think.
Felt, and I take complete responsibility because I'm the mother, and as a mother is to protect your child.
Yeah.
And I thought I was protecting my child. And I also realized that there are different pockets in that whole experience that I don't remember.
Yeah.
And I'm proud that I journal.
Mm-hmm.
Because I did look back and was able to see some things that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, why didn't I remember that?
Right.
And I had to call my therapist. You know,
Right.
I say thank God that I had a therapist that helped me walk through these things, because I was like, I love my daughter, you know, and she is like my Shiro. You know, but she's my child.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't put her in the position of being the mother. And, you know, I try to look at it and I try to reconcile it. And I say, this is part of the domestic violence that a lot of people don't realize is how it messes with you and scars you, that you can never regain that time back again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I say that scripture about comes to kill, destroy, steal, kill, and destroy, because it steals that relationship. Mm-hmm. It kills whatever connection you had, and it destroys. But you see, the devil's a liar.
Yeah.
And there's a higher power that I believe in, and that's God. I believe in God, and I believe that God actually saved me because of a scripture. I went to the church to find help. And, you know, the thing was like, well, we'll
But he
do
was
counseling.
also violating that there.
But the churches were not equipped to help me. They could not help me.
No.
I do say one thing about the one pastor. He couldn't help me, but he did allow me to go to different domestic violence functions and paid for it through the church. So that when people came in the church, he would say, go see Sister Wideman. And I'm like, what? Now I'm the spiritual person?
Well, that's funny, because I think that was the beginning of your journey to where you are today with helping. You know what I mean? It's like people come in your life for different reasons. We all know this. And it might not, in that moment, you're like, what the heck? And then when you look back on it and look at the things that you've done since then, it's like, well, he prepared me for a call to men, for beauty for ashes, for pearls. You know what I mean? Kind of those little things prepared you to have conversations with people, to use your house as a sanctuary for women who've gone through some of the same things that you went through. Talk about a little bit. You wanted to say something?
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say talk a little bit about, so we understand you got married and things like that. So jump a little bit far ahead when you made that decision. Okay, enough is enough. It's time to leave.
I was just about to say, what was that tipping point? Because I want people to understand. Okay, Morning Dew's gonna. I love that name. Morning Dew's gonna talk first, but I want Tameka.
Now she calls me Morning Dew because
I know nobody knows what you're talking about.
Because, long story short, our ancestry has Native Americans in it, and
which I can't.
That's my Native American name. But the thing is that I don't claim it as my heritage. I'm black. I'm African American.
Well, anyway, I love the name. I'll keep calling it. So we're both going to talk about a prayer that was sent, but it answered in two different ways. So what was your moment? What was your
when I said
my journey. This is my journey. This is okay. No more. I'm done. Enough.
I'll tell you. Two things. One, I saw the movie Sleeping with the Enemy with Julia Roberts, and how she actually started planning her escape. And it wasn't overnight. It was putting money aside, connections, doing different things. I started putting money into a different account because we had a joint account and he was just spending the money. So I opened up a separate account. And then things that were dear to me, I'm an avid reader. So my books were very important to me. I had my grandmother's sewing machine and some other little things that I was able to put in storage without him knowing, because he didn't know what I had in the house. He knew I read books, but I could have just gotten rid of them.
Yeah.
And I did that because in one of his fits, he tore up pictures that were very dear to me, a family. So that was one thing, looking at Sleeping with the Enemy. But what really did it, I had gone on a church conference for church business administrators. I had left Citibank and started working in my own Joyful Jubilee, which is serving churches and doing their accounting. And so my pastor sent me to go to this conference. And what happened is, when I came back, he asked, what was I cooking? I came back from California, and all he's worried about is cooking. So I said, okay, I'll put steaks on because he likes steaks. And I was making greens and some potatoes, something like that. I went upstairs to change. Now, meanwhile, it's on the grill. He's outside talking to the neighbor by the grill. Come down, the steaks burn. He cusses me out in the front. Neighbors there, people here. He's cussing me out, talking about this is why you go out and saying all this stuff, and you're probably sleeping with the pastor, and you didn't really do this and do that. And I just said, I'm sick of this. So I went upstairs, and I said, I'm tired, jet lag. He said, come downstairs. And he kept saying, I said, let me go downstairs, see what the problem is. He had turned the table upside down, and I'm walking away from it, and he threw this wrought iron chair at me, and it bruised my arm. It wasn't the worst thing, but it was like I had enough. And so he said, I'm going out. And I was like, go out and get killed, whatever. So I'm laying down with one eye open, waiting for him to come in. He didn't come in. And I started my plan. I said, I have to go to work. So I went to work, and I worked at a church. So I went to the altar, and I was down there praying. And one of my friends who was going into ministry came there, and she said, what? And I started crying. And she said, what's wrong? And that's the first time that I actually said that I was abused verbally, because I didn't really tell the pastor. I just said we were having problems, but to say I was physically abused and everything. And she says, I am interning at a domestic violence center, and I want you to call this person. In fact, I'm taking you there now. And I was like, now? Because it's like, I'm not ready to expose my life. And so she said, yeah. So she called a friend up, and they said, come on down. So I went there to the domestic violence place. And meanwhile, my friend was from Harlem, Okay, so that's a New York connection. I'm in Maryland. She's from Harlem. We go to the DV center, and she asked me to talk to the lawyer, who's from Hicksville originally.
So it's all like
It's
Long
all New
Island,
York.
New
And
York.
I said, that's New York. So I was telling her, and I said, I make pretty good money, but I don't have any money because of this, this, and this. And she goes, well, she said, we could start proceedings. I said, what? She said, we're going to go and get the ex parte. And I said, okay, what day? She goes, right now. And I said, ex parte.
What's
So an
that?
ex parte is where you can have the abuser removed from the home for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go back in 2 weeks and you can reapply and see if you can extend it. I was like, oh, okay.
How do you keep them from going to the house though?
Because I have a protective order.
So
So
if
I
he
changed
shows
the
up,
locks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then if he comes there and tries to do something, call the police.
Right.
That's fine and dandy, but how fast do police come at that time? This is in the 90s. But anyhow,
I just want to interject real quick. So this is all going on, and I'm living in New York now. Now I'm like left school.
yes.
I'm going to school in New York, living with my grandparents, my mom's mother, and my grandmother sits me down. She's like, I have to tell you something. I don't know if you had told her yet, and I'm like, oh God. And she tells me, and I remember my reaction was like, oh well. I was just like, I'm over it. I have gone off to college. I'm new. I know people. I'm living a life. You know what I mean? I'm working at Sam Goody.
I'm
it's going. Yeah, I'm out of that. I don't want to hear about it. Nothing. And so I'm, I guess my nan expected me to be like all distraught, and I was just like, well, hopefully she'll be all right. And she's like, well, she's bruised. Threw a table or something at her. I was like, well, she's probably gonna go back to him anyway. So I don't. And that's my mindset. It's like, at that point,
Because it's happened so often.
right. I'm like, now I'm like 20, whatever, early 21, 22, whatever the case may be. And I'm just like over it. And so that's another indication of when you're in a situation where you're being abused, it has so many tentacles.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
affecting so many people in so many different ways. But listening to her tell the story and the people, it's funny how God works, because it's like that person happened to be there at that what's the odds that she's at the altar praying and the woman interns at a domestic violence shelter or whatever the case may be, and that they
And the
can,
lawyers
Right.
from Hicksville.
right.
But get this, we go to court, right? And so they give you the ex parte. That's fine. So 2 weeks, will pass. And meanwhile, I'm going to counseling. So the therapist, first it's group counseling, and then she says she'll do one-on-one with me. It charges me only $1.
Wow.
Even though I should have been charged more because of the salary I make. She said, I got to charge you something, $1. We're still friends to this day, even though she moved out of Maryland, moved to Alabama. Now she's in Delaware, but we still stay connected.
And you moved out of Maryland too, so it's,
Right. And so then when we go back 2 weeks later, I go see the judge, and it's a woman judge, and I explain what's going on and all. And she goes, you look familiar. I'm like, I don't know this lady. I've never been in court before.
Apparently you do.
And she said, and she looked. She said, where do you work? I said, Malpisco. She said, I've been there. She said, you work there? And I said, yes. And she says, okay. And she says, so he can't come for 2 years to the house. She said, because
Wow.
that's how long it takes for you to be able to go through, and because he'll probably contest it.
Mm-hmm.
So in order for it, you can't be living together for 2 years, so we're going to make it that he can't be in the house for 2 years.
Wow.
That
Talk
is
about a
God's favor.
Talk
Yeah.
about a favor, because if you're trying to have a contested divorce, you have to go for 2 years not living together, not anything, for it to be uncontested, granted, nothing. What she did for you was beyond what I think that we're appreciating, or maybe a listener is appreciating, because not only did she take him out of your life, she made sure you were not
Not
going
going to go back.
either.
Yes. And believe me, he tried, because we had a big snowstorm and one of the parking slots was taken up. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and he's out there acting like a wild man, talking about, I know you got somebody up there. And normally I'd just be like shaking, 911. The police came and everything. By then they said they saw somebody looking like they were drunk walking up. he would park. It was a dead end street, so he would park at the top part because he said he had to stay 50 feet away to intimidate me. But my neighbors now knew because I told them, because I felt empowered.
Right.
So I would call one of the neighbors when I was leaving. They would be outside with their dog. And when I was coming home, I would call and they would be outside to make sure. Because I lived next to the woods.
Yeah.
So, and I had an alarm on the house. So that was
You
good.
actually came to the house from
Yeah.
downtown. Yeah, that's right.
So I had,
And that's
now
after
I
she had left
had
Mm-hmm.
a connection. Now I had, like you like to say, a tribe
I tried.
that was looking out for me. The pastor and one of the trustees sat outside my home one evening till in the morning because he was harassing me so bad. He would come up in the church and start taking pictures because he asked, well, I go to the same church. Can't I go to the church? They said, yeah, you can go to church. But, you got to. So because I was in the choir, he would take pictures. But what happened, I stopped going to the church there.
Yeah. It's a story. This is why I keep saying I need you to write, because I wrote my book from my perspective. I want her to write her book from her perspective in terms of like the same time frame.
Right.
And then we can publish a mother-daughter book. You just got to get on it.
Well, I've been doing little tidbits and
All right.
everything.
I'm just saying.
How long did it take you to write your book?
It took me. How old am I? It's a
Yeah,
lifetime.
but this is
all
a
up in the memory.
process. But see, that's
No,
the
I
thing.
know.
I
I'm
feel
joking.
Like,
I'm not.
no,
You know.
but what I think that we need to remember is that this whole thing, this whole journey, this whole, as you said, there's so many tentacles. It's a process because there's things that maybe you'll get over, but you'll never forget. Both of you.
Right.
Yeah.
There's things that you'll see in other people that could be a trigger. But now, okay. But now let's talk about how do you really help? Because if somebody comes to you like, oh, my husband smacks me every now and again. Oh my God, I would never. You better cock your hand back and punch him right in the mouth. He'll never do it again. No, but some people, that's their answer.
Right.
Or just get up and leave. What, you can't just get up and leave?
I think the only people that
No.
say that are people that haven't been through it.
Well, that's what. But some people just need to give you an answer.
Right.
And I think the person with the quickest mouth is the one that is the most insecure. So how do you really help someone? Because
You be their friend. First of all, you listen and you believe them.
right.
And then the first thing you want to ask them, are you safe? And if they say yes, so then you proceed to say, so you're safe that if it happens again that you know where to go, or do you have like a place to go? Do you have money put to the side, a place to go, somebody you can trust and contact? Do you have children? If they have children, you have to think about that. Does the school know? Because another way, if you have children, sometimes when they can't get to you, they'll get to the children.
Right.
Which we know from this incident with many incidents with my daughter, which, I have to apologize again because it blanked out. But when I look back at the journal, there were signs that I just blocked out. But you never doubt them because it's their truth.
Right.
And then now there are so many agencies. Back when it was new because it was a hush hush. It was taboo to speak about that.
But there was also a stigma. Even if
Yes.
you were the one taking the brunt of it was still a stigma.
Yes. But now it's like, the Me Too, but Me Too was happening long before Me Too.
Yeah.
To other people, people that didn't have the money.
So because you're a numbers person, and I do appreciate the numbers. So let's talk about a financial form. Because, okay, you have someone who's isolated, unable to work. How do they financially free themselves? What is their option?
Well, a lot of people like me. Now, I had the finances, but a lot of people at the shelter didn't have the finances. They have shelters.
Mm-hmm.
They have resources that will help you. I know that I still work with Beauty for Ashes Ministry. And what they do is they educate religious facilities and also other facilities. But what they also do is they have counseling that they do. And it's more on a Christian basis.
Right.
But never say that you don't have a place, because now even if you look at some firehouses, it says this is a safe place.
Right.
So you do have a place to go, and there are resources. It might not be what you expected or want.
Something's there.
Believe me, it was very humbling for me to go to the shelter
Right.
Me too.
And it was like, how can I go in, and you had to dress up back in the days. I don't know if they still do, but with City Bank I was in, I had to dress up and go there and smile and be nice and everything, and then go home to a shelter. And that's where my compassion, because there was people there that didn't even have a job like I did.
Yeah.
And then I felt like I had to help them.
Yeah. So
It's funny that time, like when she talks about it, when I remember it, it seems so, like I feel so removed from it.
yeah.
Like just living in a, like I remember being in a, like I lived in a damn shelter. Like what the hell?
Yeah.
I like it just doesn't even seem like me. It's like there's certain parts, like it doesn't seem like me, like running across the street and her barefoot and him banging on the door, or him trying to get in bed with me and
It's like a
touching
movie.
and all, like it does not seem like my life, but it's my life.
But and you were very integrated into your family as well. So it's
Yeah.
not like you were isolated. I would say that maybe you were, Deborah. I think you were more isolated than she was. But she was very integrated into her family. Family knew. Family knew what was going on.
But they didn't care enough to. I wouldn't say they didn't care, because I told them about. They knew. They all knew what was going on. But it's a situation where, like, well, you made your bed, you lie in it. It's a
What?
different. That's what
sorry.
it.
Not
no,
you. Not you.
no.
You.
Oh.
Yeah. Not Tamieka. You.
No, I just feel like our family was just. They didn't like make. The only person that really made a little bit of an effort is my Uncle Brian. But it was like, it felt more like because he was being threatened. Oh, what, you gonna test me? What, you gonna get out the car and say something?
That's right. That was outside the beauty
Right.
parlor.
And so to me, that's the only time I ever seen somebody like, oh my God, he's actually gonna stand up. But now in hindsight, I'm like, he's standing up because he tested his manhood.
And you know what?
Right.
And when he did that, I'm glad you said, because I felt like he was going to rescue me.
Right.
I did.
But he didn't want to. Brian is the type of person where he's not going to
Don't say
overstep either.
Yeah.
He will, if you ask him for his help
He will
and to
do
put
it.
him, if you say, Brian, I need a place to stay, he will pay for a month's worth of
Yeah.
you to stay in a hotel. He will come.
And he did that.
Yeah, he will come. He came and picked us
But
up.
I think that's what's so important about the tribe too, because the tribe doesn't know how to help, or they don't help in the right way.
In the way that they think that you need to be helped.
Because nobody ever experienced it. And that's why I don't blame anybody, because it was all new to
All of that.
to us.
Yeah.
In our tribe. I don't know anybody that went through it. If they did, it was like
You didn't
never
know about
talked
it.
about.
Right.
And
you would think after all these years it would be mentioned in nothing. Like, I haven't heard about anything that either one of us have gone through. Like, Nana never talked about ever getting beat up, or like her mother, nothing.
I know.
It's just that was new.
Yeah.
That was totally new. And that's why I think the cycle can be broken
Yes.
with me. The only problem I feel like in terms of this whole situation with me is that I am very insecure. Like, I cannot have a real relationship because remember I was in a relationship. I told you this one time, and the guy I was dating had a beard, and I told him that that my mom's ex-husband had a beard, and I don't like the beard, and I'm throwing all this stuff. He's like, I am not him. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, ugh, I don't know how not to be that. Like, every relationship I get in, I compare it. But that's the only thing I knew growing up.
Right.
I mean, I know my other family members, but when you're in that house, you kind of, this is where you think it's supposed to be. It's hard even today to try to have like a real relationship. And when a guy compliments me, I don't believe it. It's just very, I hope I'm not going to be alone my whole life.
But that's where where domestic violence, that emotional abuse, that's why
it goes
on
on
back
forever.
to what you say. It goes
It
on
does.
for a lot longer than you could ever imagine. And I know that I came into your life just about when you were by yourself, but it was
Your
like
life,
fresh.
meaning
Your life,
morning
your life.
dew.
Morning dew.
Because he
I
was
came
still
morning
around.
dew.
She saw him at the church.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you were at the tipping point. You were like, oh, this is done. He's done. He's out. You just had to pass a few more things. But that's when I came into your life. And then I know me and Tamieka, when I came into your life, we were kids,
Right.
essentially. And you're still dealing with so much of that at that point.
One of the other problems with that too is that I look at all my friends' relationship and I swear they're getting beat up. You tell me a situation. You told me about a situation that happened with you, And I'm like, oh my God, like all of a
Yeah,
sudden,
yeah.
I tell all my friends if I find out that they're in like an abusive relationship, like I can't be friends with you.
Yeah,
Figure
yeah.
it out for yourself. But I went through this with my mom. I'm not
I'm not
going.
doing it again.
I'm not. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I remember you went through something. I remember I told you I was like, I love you, Holmes, but
this might be it for
you're
us.
yeah, I can't. I can't support you.
Yeah.
Like I just can't do it.
And for me, the saving grace for me, the really thing that helped me where I knew that I was no longer, uh, well, I thought I was. Let's put it that way, because there's always something, like you said, that can trigger it.
Yeah.
Was Pearls for Creative Healing, which dealt with those that came out of an abusive relationship. Because once you come out, then what? Because what happened is you lost so much of yourself.
Yeah.
So Pearls for Creative Healing actually introduced different art forms or different things that you did prior to the abuse. For me, I used to write. Like Tamieka writes beautiful. I used to write. I used to do poems. And he destroyed all that. He threw all my writings and everything out. But I found one that I did, which was called Summertime Ain't Nothing But the Devil in Disguise. I'll never forget it, because I was talking about how, well, that's another story, but it was one of the poems that I remembered. So it helped me rediscover those creative juices that were pressed down.
Yeah.
And so one of the things, I like doing numbers. I mean, that was my gift, to work with that. I like writing. I like having fun. I found Stella got her groove back, minus the man. But
Yeah, that to me, it was hard on me because I'm looking at my mom like, oh, now you can have steak dinners and stuff. Now, like I'm resenting that she's living her life. She's living her best life,
Yeah, like,
living her best life.
Now you want to live your
Now
best
you want to
life?
live your best life, and I'm sitting there wallowing and like
You're still dealing with your abuse.
I'm like, she came out of here, she all good, everything good. Like I can't even focus on the fact that she's getting therapy to get to this point. All I can think about is that she's living good. She's fine. She's like, I'm going on vacation. I'm like, what? Like, where you? Like, I just could not.
Where was this, Debra?
I'm like, you're not allowed to go on vacation. I didn't say that to her, but I'm like,
you're the way you're
you squandered your life away on this guy. Sit down somewhere. I'm going on vacation.
Yeah.
But she was like living her best life, and I'm just like, I was pissed.
And I love traveling with you now.
No, I know, but we had to get to that
We
point.
had to.
Yeah, you have to
Through
work to
therapy
get
and,
here.
and actually having a conversation and growing and maturing and becoming an adult and recognizing that, you were not the one that was at fault. He was. He made this. He found your weakness and exploited it. But it was hard for me to get to that point because all I know is that you're my mother. You're supposed to be there to protect me.
Absolutely.
And so it was a difficult time, but the place that we're at now is where you're on the podcast and we're talking about it and we're good to go.
And like when you said triggers, one of the jobs that I had actually triggered that those feelings again, where I actually had a mental breakdown.
Reaction.
I actually had a mental breakdown, and I don't mind talking about that because it's important to know that
These
it's
things
just
can
like
happen, and
it's
that's
just
okay.
like when
you
you're
gotta
an
know how to
addict,
deal with it. Yeah.
and if you're an alcoholic, you could be alcohol free for years, but if you take one drink, it can bring you right back to that start. And this one job, all those things started coming back, and I was like, how can this be? And I couldn't cope. And I remember Tamieka saying, I don't understand. You're like, this is not my mother. I think I scared Tamieka. I scared myself.
She was reverting back to who she was back in the 80s and 90s.
It was worse.
Which was so different.
But for me, that
Yes.
the person that I was seeing, it was worse. But I'm saying the person that you were becoming, I was seeing that person again, and I was like I told you earlier, it's like I'm not trying to be friends with nobody that's going through that again.
Yeah.
And you were reminding me of who that person was, and I was like, I don't want to go back there. I wrote a book. That's as far as I'm going, but I wasn't also not going to abandon you on the sidewalk. Like I'm going to walk through it with you, but it was hard. I knew it was harder for you though.
I lost weight. I mean, it scared me. It's like an out of body experience. I think I saw the devil face to face. Even though I saw the devil during the abuse, I think it was like, this is the spirit that was in him, that was face to face. But because I was actually, before that all happened, I was like doing my devotionals every morning, reading the Bible, doing all that. The Lord interceded and said, scripture, Romans 12 something, and I said, or 24:12 or something like that. And I said, does that even exist? It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I got up and I actually read it, and it gave me peace. And when I look at the journal, that writing was scary. It wasn't my handwriting. I think I showed it to you.
No, you didn't show it to me.
It didn't look like my writing.
What do you think it was?
I think it was the Lord coming through and writing for me, because
knocking you on
I
the head?
couldn't do anything. I was like, and this
You
was
found a way to do your journals though. It was like you would like sleep all day and then wake up, do a devotional, and then go back to sleep. It was.
I didn't get out of bed.
No.
The journal, everything was on the
I
bed.
dragged her when we went on vacation in South Carolina, Myrtle Beach. I pretty much dragged her along, but she seemed like
You
she
made
had
me drive.
Well, no, I'm saying I dragged you. Yeah, I made you drive, but I'm talking about like I dragged you.
You weren't that concerned.
I was concerned, but I knew we had to get out of the hotel room, and I like to stay in a hotel room all day if I can. But I knew you had to get out and get some fresh air.
And that was the best thing, because that was like a week before I had to go back.
Right.
To,
it was
to
good.
That job,
it was a good trip.
Which was a good sign, because now that I went through that, I know the trigger points. So I had that job, and then I had another job after that, but there was signs that were coming up, and I quit.
Yeah.
And, I'm working, where I work now is like, oh my goodness, because I love serving people, and I love numbers.
Right.
So I work for nonprofits. I don't do any more corporate, even though that's where the money might be. It's not always about the money, it's about peace. And so I'm still trying to find my purpose.
Damn, I broke the other side.
Well,
Sorry.
now it matches. She's talking about her jacket.
Yeah.
Last
week I broke one side. This week I just broke the other one.
I heard.
Sorry.
My
bad.
But I just, I feel that I have to tell my story.
Yeah.
No matter how painful. And I know you had asked me, is anything off limits? No. And the reason why it's not off limits is because it's my truth.
Right.
And, I might be embarrassed sometimes, but I'll get over it because it's my truth. And somebody knows the truth.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think an abuser can do?
We don't want to talk about that.
I'm going to tell you something about what the abuser, I don't know, because I can't fathom. I just told you who the abuser is. I don't care what the devil does. I need to know what I need to do. I need to guard myself, be more aware. We need to break that stigma where you keep everything to yourself. What's done in the house stays in the house. That was old school.
It's starting to change a lot, especially with social media and people just telling the truth.
And then you got to be careful, because you got to sift through what's really true.
Right.
But then sometimes, they're like your truth and my truth are truths.
Right.
Even if I'm like, really?
They're from two different
But
perspectives,
that's because,
it's true.
Right, because, there was a study done where you can have 3 people in the room and there's 3 different stories of what went on.
Right.
We did that I went to seminary for a month. So we did that in seminary. And I remember I saw the gorilla walking through, but there was like a person talking. And I remember somebody walking behind the person in the gorilla suit. A lot of people didn't see the gorilla. And then somebody said, with a banana. I said, I didn't see the banana. So, it's like,
you never know.
You never know what that story is. And so it's just saying that you cannot negate somebody's truth. That's their truth.
Right.
But what happens is that to back up when there has to be, if you want to take any legal recourse, you have to talk from your perspective, not what they're thinking, saying, this is what happened to me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I'm afraid. This is why I need this divorce.
Right.
This is why I had to forgive him. Doesn't mean that if I see him, I won't shoot him. Doesn't mean
that's not what she said.
Doesn't mean that I have to interact with him.
Right.
The forgiveness is for myself.
Right.
Because otherwise, he still has me under his control.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's not going to happen. And, when I first moved to North Carolina, and the reason why I moved to North Carolina, because I knew I had to move out of Maryland. And North Carolina was the only place that was cheap. I wanted to go like Delaware or New York, but I couldn't afford it. But I said Tamieka was here in school for 2 years, and I knew it was growing. So let me go here. And I knew there was a bank capital, even though that's not what I ended up doing. And I was able to buy a house. So even though I lost what most people said. I gained so much. I gained being a single homeowner with nobody's name on that deed but mine. I had a good job. I lost 3 or 4 jobs, but I never lost a mortgage payment or any payments. Um, you know, like
You
Tamika
make it
said,
through.
it's good, but it's like through the struggle
Yeah.
and staying. And what happened is really, I changed some of my spending habits because you have to learn. There were some things that were not a necessity.
Yeah.
So it's a whole process. It's a whole process.
It is.
I want to transition for a few minutes for our Yep That's Trending. Yep That's
Yep,
Trending.
that's trending.
I wanted to talk about, because you touched on a little bit about the abuser. I find it very disturbing that in today's climate, celebrity abusers, people tend to rally around them. For example, pulled up the article, Fabulous was just indicted for domestic violence charges against his girlfriend. Now they're saying they're married. And it's like, oh, so he married, after all these years, now he married her, which goes back to what you were saying earlier, Mom. But go ahead and talk a little bit about that, Marissa. What exactly happened with that?
So he's indicted on 4 felony charges related to alleged assault on Emily B., the mother of his 2 children. 1 count of domestic violence with significant bodily injury, 2 counts of threatening to kill, 1 count of possession of a weapon. There's a video where he's brandishing a pair of scissors.
I saw that video.
In a threatening manner. Emily claims Fabulous repeatedly punched her in the face and knocked out her front teeth. Oh boy, there's a lot going on here.
And that's prior to him being arrested.
Right.
That was like a week earlier. It's just crazy because when I saw that, I went to his Instagram page and it's like him with all these celebrities and everybody's like, oh, like, and not just guys, like women, like, I'm talking Lala, Lil Kim, like there's people that still have relevance, women that still have relevance into today's society, and they're still giving him a pass. It's like at what point, and then his girlfriend went back to him immediately after.
Right.
After, in the video, you can see her father is just like trying to protect her and pull her away, and then Fabulous is trying to go after her, like doing the fake thrust.
Right.
And
right.
so you see all of that, and it's like it's crazy because they, like what you were saying, you go back several times. It's like, how many times does a person go back? But you see what's going on, and it's like, when you're a celebrity, it always feels like they get a pass. When you look at Chris Brown,
Right.
We see the video, the pictures, the images of Rihanna, and after it happened, she went back to him.
Yes.
She's not with him now, but it's like, if you look at Ike and Tina Turner, they're just, it's just constant.
I think one of the things that I don't want to just whittle this down to just the way the human brain processes information, because I don't want to give a pass to that, but I think the way we still process this domestic violence information is that we say, well, if she was fighting him like a man, then that's what you get.
Right.
With the Rihanna situation.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet Rihanna beat his ass too. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it don't matter.
She shouldn't have gotten hit in the face. She shouldn't have gotten hit, period. But anyway, I think, and then with Ike and Tina, I think it's I mean, she still talks about it today, but
Yeah, she got a book coming out, I think, where she talks about her nose as a punching bag.
Yeah, and I'll talk about like my parents. I saw my parents physically fight a lot, and I remember my grandma saying, "Yeah, but your mom's really feisty. She beat him up. Oh, your father had 2 casts. Oh, and her brother, my mom's brother, meaning." Used to like my grandma's verbiage was never like that. She was very different. But anyway, my mother's brother's verbiage was like, yeah, but she has a mouth on her. She went to him first. She hit him first. She antagonized him first. I don't really know the story because I was so little. I don't remember. I do remember them choking each other out a lot. I do remember a lot of physical things. But I also remember people saying, yeah, but your poor dad as
Making
well.
excuses for the guy,
Excuse, like,
which is
yeah,
weird.
You just
I don't
can't
understand
do
that.
And I do remember my dad, like, once they got rid of each other, I guess. I don't know, however you want to word that. I remember him doing this dramatic change where he never raised his voice. He was never excitable, and he was just a very different person than what he was with my mom. And by no means is it her fault or his fault, like, none of that. But we give these passes. Our brain wants to process this in a way that makes it palatable. It is never palatable. It is never okay to choke each other out, especially in front of your kids, but whatever, just period.
Yeah.
And I think, when you're a celebrity, like you said, like Lala, and you're giving somebody a pass on domestic violence, I
can't get behind that.
I don't understand where in yourself, in your spirit, that you allow yourself to process this information that way.
I think about like my dad. When I graduated high school, my dad came to graduation, and when he saw my mom's, at the time the man that she spoke about was her boyfriend. They were not married yet, and my dad knew exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
Because I told my grandmother, and my dad walked in the house and shook his hand, and that broke me.
Yeah.
In a way that I couldn't really vocalize it. It's like it's my graduation.
I don't even think that your dad can understand.
But I said to him years later, like maybe 5 years ago or so, I was like, yeah, I still remember when you went and shook his hand. And he said to me, a normal person, a normal man, a man, I think would say, I apologize, I didn't know what to do. That's what I think a normal man, my dad, he said, well, what did you want me to do, beat him up? Motherfucker.
Yes,
I want you to
do.
beat him up.
Yes, in fact, yes.
Yes, in fact, yes.
Yes, actually.
But it's like, that goes back to like the whole like.
The way he's processing this information, the way his defense mechanism. Instead of just understanding that you did something wrong, accept it, acknowledge, and apologize.
Right.
He went to the defense, like, what do you want me to beat his ass? Yeah, I do.
But that's how celebrities are. What you were saying.
Well, when you were talking about celebrities, I was thinking about Johnny Depp.
Right.
And the thing is that, do you hear anything about that after it happened?
No.
So my problem is like when you talk about celebrities, why are they always men of color?
It's not
that
just
have
men
been
of
arrested.
Color. Right. Yeah.
That I hear about.
And
even though we know that they put in the news as front headlines because Johnny Depp, we knew about that, but did it run on and did he get arrested and did he so I'm kind of...
His ex-wife won, what was it, 7-point-something million, and she donated the entire thing to domestic violence.
Yep.
But should he have been arrested?
Yeah, of course he should have. Of course.
But they're like, no, that's Captain Jack or whatever his name.
Yeah, I like him.
But that's the problem.
But what about
people
R.
know
Kelly?
that you like him. You know?
But now what about R. Kelly? I feel like he's getting way too many passes.
Exactly. He's gotten passed, but he went to court and he was proven not guilty. He had his day in court. I mean, what are you gonna say?
And that's the thing I think the thing is that it's just not equal.
Right.
And so in order for it to be equal, people have to get out there to vote locally to make sure some laws are passed that is not, because not all domestic violence is considered a crime. It's like a misdemeanor. Right. So you have to make it stronger.
Right.
And then wasn't there an issue with Hulk Hogan as well? Of
domestic
violence?
Yes.
What happened? I mean,
now they're talking about,
is still strong.
Now they're about to put him back into the Wrestling Hall of Fame talk because he got banned from the organization because he was saying so many racist stuff. But the racist stuff was bad, which I agree is bad. But the domestic violence is okay.
Oh
you know what I'm saying? It's like it's all bad. But until people see it that way, it is what it is.
That's right.
Anyway, good show.
Good show.
Tamieka? Well, not yet. I know I'm enough, but give me a second.
All right.
Mom, you want to give the listeners a little bit of information how they can reach you if maybe they're going through something or,
I do have a website, which is DebraWideman.com, DEBRA.
I'll post it.
WIDEMAN.com. And on there, every year or so, I usually post something that is an inspiration, and I have some pictures on there showing my steps of rediscovering who I am, and there's a lot of pictures showing me and my daughter when we went on trips, and then some of the speaking engagements that I've done. So and there's also resources that you can contact. There's a page where there's different resources, but
where can they get in touch with you directly?
DebraWideman.com.
No, I mean, you want to give them your Twitter handle, Instagram, they can reach you.
I don't know that offhand. I'm still trying to come to...
Morning Dew.
I'm still
Oh
trying.
yes, Morning Dew.
It
Morning
is?
Dew.
Morning Dew on Instagram.
Oh. Okay. It's Morning Dew on Instagram.
I say it
and
all the
Twitter,
time.
I think, is Morning Dew too.
It might
but
be Morning Dew.
D-E-W.
Yeah.
Morning D-E-W.
But you can get all that
Morning Dew.
from the website too.
Yes,
You can-
because I just I'm coming into the 21st century.
Find her, boo. Find her.
At her.
At her, boo. Yeah, that's
I
my
think
bad.
I do pretty darn good.
At her, boo. Marissa, where can they find us?
Yep, yeah, yes, 18.
Oh, okay.
On both Twitter and Instagram.
Wow, you are really coming into your own. I gotta admit, I'm so very proud of you. Thank you for being you.
You're welcome.
All right, y'all.
Tamika,
Yes,
I love you.
I love you too.
You're enough.
Oh, thank you.
Hold up. Morning Dew,
Yes.
you are a sunshine. I love you, and you're enough.
And I love you both because you're both my daughters.
Okay. But you only birthed one of us, so let's keep
That's
it.
okay.
Share and share alike.
Whatever. Anyway, thank y'all. Catch you next week. Yep, yeah, yes.